in the event that he or she believes that they can't complete a safe landing, and then the parachute lowers the airplane to the ground with minimal damage and with all other survivability equipment employed, seat belts, everything else, most likely result in a safe landing. And I think it's a fair representation of what occurred here. And no, there were no distress calls from either aircraft, and I don't have any reason to believe that there were any maintenance difficulties going on at the time. But that's why we conduct these investigations, and that's why I have teams on both airplanes looking at them, as we always do.
Do you have any idea of the mechanics of this crash, how they came together? It was certainly not head-on. Was it one coming up under the other? Do you have any idea yet? And how will you determine?
No, I don't, but I'm confident that we'll get that information from several sources. See, my role here, especially early on in the investigation, is to just cast a big net and gather as much data as possible. I put no value on that data, and frequently it doesn't become information until this data point over here is compared with this data point collected over here, and possibly by different people. I may not know for days what maybe later on should have appeared obvious. And to be honest, I'm unconcerned because I have experts with the physical evidence, and I have an expert with the electronic evidence that will probably answer that question with great clarity. But right now, no, and I'm unconcerned. I'm still picking up all the pieces. I'll worry about what they mean later.
How important will the testimony be of the surviving, the air traffic controller as well, who apparently watched this happen? I mean, how important will her comments, her testimony, her story be to your investigation?
Well, it all adds value, especially when you have expert witnesses, if you will. The pilot is probably more of an expert witness than a pedestrian on the ground. The woman in the tower is a highly trained air traffic controller. But I don't speak air traffic control. I could fly airplanes in the National Airspace System, but I wasn't an air traffic controller. The gentleman who's in the tower with her now, or maybe that interview is tomorrow, I can't be sure, he speaks the same language, and he'll be able to find out with much greater fidelity than I could, and then he'll brief me in English.
Do you know, I'm sorry, how many controllers were actually in the tower at the time that this happened? Was it just that one? Can you tell us anything more about that?
Well, I'm unclear on that, sir.
When do you plan on having the investigation finished?
I'll answer that later. Back to your question, sir. There were at least 2, possibly 3, but how many were actually on duty at the moment that the accident occurred, I don't know. To answer your question, the on-scene, probably this weekend. The entire investigation will take approximately a year.
When you have helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft sharing the same field or space, is there a hierarchy of who has priority landing or taking off and things like that?
Okay, that is really not a question that I can answer. It involves the rules of the road, if you will, and that is the purview of the FAA. Exactly what the procedures here or at this airport, or what they have published, I don't know. I can't answer that.
In terms of the data that you do you have a rough idea what the altitude was when the collision occurred?
Personally, off the top of my head, no, I don't. But I know it's captured. It's in the radar data. It's in the readout, and I know I'll get it. So again, I'm at this very moment, I'm unconcerned because I know I've already got it.
What condition is the helicopter in? And when you get to the scene of a crash like this, I know you've done this, but is it still gut-wrenching to see debris like this?
Well, anytime that there are fatalities involved, it's a terrible, terrible tragedy. And the reason we're here is to determine what happened and try to prevent it from happening again in the future. I don't there's no scale to measure. Once there's a fatality, it's a tragedy. The helicopter, the damage is significant, and that's really as far as I'm willing to go. Excuse me, I forgot to turn off my phone.
When do you anticipate the plane and the helicopter being moved?
If things go as planned today, I hope that both the airplane and the helicopter will be removed from the site to a storage facility where if a more detailed examination needs to be completed, we can do it discreetly there.
Is there clarity in terms of who was piloting the helicopter? As I had understood from that company, there were 2 people on board who were capable of being pilots. Do you know who the pilot was on the helicopter?
No, and to repeat what I said last night, one of the things that we'll be examining is what certificates were held by each of the pilots, what privileges they could exercise with those certificates, what the purpose of the flight was, if it was instructional, currency, whether they were just logging time, whether it was a business flight. At this point, I don't know. But again, that's all information that's known, it's captured, and I'll get it. One more.
You touched on this earlier. You said there were no indications of any distress from either of the aircraft prior to the collision.
I haven't heard any distress calls in the recordings that were forwarded to me, and neither was I advised of any distress calls in any of the correspondence that was forwarded to me from the FAA and internally from experts within my own agency.
There were some accounts that seem to indicate to us, at least, from people on the ground, that the plane might have been in some sort of distress, might have been spiraling out of control at some point immediately prior to the collision. I have no evidence that supports that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you spell your name, sir?
Yes,
Brian Rayner of the National Transportation Safety Board. He is an air safety inspector and giving a briefing now about 14 hours after his first briefing, and helpful as well. You heard him say a couple of things. One was that he's gotten a flood of good information from, first of all, the Maryland Highway Patrol's, the Maryland State Police, I should say, interviews with the 2 survivors of that plane. Of course, we're talking about a fixed-wing aircraft, a small single-engine private plane, and a helicopter collided just to the west of the main runway there at the Frederick County Airport. 3 people on board the helicopter died. The 2 people on board that plane were hurt but not seriously injured, and both of whom were released from the hospital yesterday. But in the state police interview with the 2 of them, Mr. Rayner said that they got a wealth of information about what happened. He's also said that everyone there at the site has been very cooperative. The plane had been cleared to land by the tower at the Frederick County Airport. There was an air traffic control official on duty inside the tower and had cleared the small plane to land, and apparently just prior to the crash relayed instructions to the pilot to be on the lookout because there were 3 helicopters operating in the area. The pilot radioed back, "Yeah, I see 2 of them," and it was very shortly after that apparently that the 3rd helicopter apparently struck the fixed-wing aircraft. The helicopter immediately plunged to the ground. Even though it was not very far off the ground at the time, that fixed-wing aircraft, equipped with a parachute, deployed the parachute, and it slowed the descent to the ground to the point where the 2 people on board were able to get out safely. So an update for you this afternoon on something that happened yesterday afternoon. And there are other developments to tell you about. As you heard there from Brian Rayner, the NTSB investigators are back at the scene of that crash. Brad Bell in Frederick has this update.
Well, as NTSB investigators begin the work of determining ultimately what happened out here, how this helicopter and plane could collide in midair, there is another very human aspect to this story. This Frederick Airport is a somber place today. 3 people died, 3 people who were part of this aviation community, and it hits the Advanced Helicopter Concepts Company particularly hard. It was their helicopter which crashed, and their instructor, Chris Parsons, who died along with 2 others, a pilot who was testing out in the helicopter so that he could rent it by the name of Will Jenkins. He was from Frostburg and Morrison, Colorado, and a passenger in the plane, Brendan McFawn, also from Cumberland and the Frostburg area. It's believed that he was a passenger. Now, one of the managers at the helicopter company says they have suspended their operations voluntarily. They're cooperating fully with the NTSB, but this is also a very hard day for them.
We're a family here. It's a small company. We work together every day. We go to each other's houses at night for dinner, and we know everybody. And so this is really hard on us.
All here at the airport are crediting the built-in parachute in that Cirrus fixed-wing aircraft for saving the lives of the 2 who were traveling aboard that aircraft. They also say that they want to find out what happened here so that this sort of accident can't happen again, and that is why they're eager to hear what the NTSB has to say. At the Frederick Municipal Airport, Brad Bell, News Channel 8.